Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us. Subscribe or follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. At ITC_pod on X. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. We had a little bit of a break. Obviously, the Gold Cup happened. Now we're just rolling right into the NWSL season.
Love it. I'm pretty sure I shampooed all the champagne out of my hair, so I'm feeling good. ready to get back to potting. Ready for this NWSL season. Even though the Into the Channel podcast is the world's preeminent Seattle Reign plus Orlando Pride podcast, perhaps the only Seattle Reign Orlando Pride podcast, doesn't mean we won't have an eye on all 14 NWSL teams this season. And with UEFA Women's Champions League on hiatus for another week or so, and the U.S. Women's National Team's triumph at the CONCACAF W Gold Cup in our rearview mirror, now it's time to turn our attention to the NWSL, which sort of kicks off Friday night, San Diego Wave versus Gotham FC. But we cracked the seal for real, Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern, when the Kansas City Current take on the Portland Thorns. I want to do something fun, so we're going to preview all 14 teams. I want to wait until the end of the preview, until we've talked through all 14, and then I want each of us to make a finals pick. So apologies for kind of springing this on you, but I think it could be fun, because I think we're going to learn a lot. And let's make a pick. That way we're on record. A lot of pitch to cover, my good man. So Mr. Grant Engel, where shall we get started?
Well, I do half-jokingly say, you used the term crack the seal earlier. There we go. I do occasionally make the joke that we don't prepare for this podcast. It's half-jokingly. I did not read your preview text, so I did not know we were making finals picks. Good job out of you. That's the short corner that you just pulled on me, and I'm completely unaware. I don't have somebody marking the second taker out there. So, okay, that's fine. We'll do it, though. I'll make a finals pick with you, buddy. Where should we start here? I'm already looking back here. I mean, just so everybody knows, just so everybody's aware, I'm outside now. I'm going to the games, bro. I say we watch the games. I'm in the stadium. I'm in Lumen Field watching the Seattle Reign. You mentioned this is the soon to be the world's preeminent, not even soon to be. This is the world's preeminent Seattle Reign Orlando Pride podcast.
Damn right.
I appreciate you letting me go first. So obviously, I'm starting right here in the beautiful Emerald City. Seattle had a bit of an up and down season last year. They were formerly the OL Reign last year. They're now Seattle Reign, back to their original name. They had 9 wins, 5 draws, and 8 losses in the regular season. They finished 4th in the table. They squeaked into the playoff by finishing the season with 2 draws at home and then a 3-0 win on the road at Chicago. Your boy was at those 2 draws at home, by the way. Again, totally self-interested. Not sure why I needed to bring that up.
Let's go.
We need to recognize in the middle of the season, as the team was going into the World Cup, Megan Rapinoe announced that she was headed toward retirement. We'll talk more about that later. Even though they kind of squeaked into the playoffs, the Reign made the NWSL final after beating Angel City at home in a playoff game. Your boy was there. And then they also beat the San Diego Wave in San Diego. Then in that final, Megan Rapinoe, the legend, in her words, and I'm quoting here, quote, fucking yeeted, end quote, her Achilles. It was pretty brutal to watch that she did it 6 minutes into the final, not just because it was going to, change the result of the match, but like to see a legend go out like that. It's amazing that she has a great sense of humor and that she, you could tell by the look on her face, she knew it was catastrophic the moment it happened. And that pretty much led to Midge Purce, Lynn Williams, and Esther Gonzalez being a total nightmare up front. Gotham controlling the pace of the game, and they took away the NWSL title from my Reign. But Gotham wasn't done taking from Seattle, it turned out. I mentioned Rapinoe's retirement. That was unfortunate. Then we got some more unfortunate news. Gotham stole more of our players. On January 4th, Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet signed with those bats. So let's just keep it a buck, my man. We lost the most important player in the history of the franchise, an obvious locker room leader, Megan Rapinoe.
Hurts.
Then we lost Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet, 2 productive, experienced players. Sonnet was obviously only here for 1 season. Lavelle was here only for 3, but that U.S. Women's National Team experience, that World Cup experience, that leadership, that's going to leave a vacuum for my squad. And so feels like we're in a little bit of a rebuilding stage, I would say.
With the landscape of the NWSL changing which we've talked a lot about on the pod, do you think the NWSL takes on the makeup of other football leagues around the world? Or do you think the NWSL continues on the track looking more like a traditional American sports league with parity pretty much architected into the design of the league? And the reason I ask is twofold. If the NWSL maintains its more like American style format, then I think we can expect kind of every team to cycle through ups and downs. But if NWSL looks more like the Premier League, let's say, then I think a winter like the Reign had could kind of be devastating, but we're not there just yet. Sometimes a team takes themselves into a transitional year. Other times it can kind of feel like a transitional year just happens to you. Either way, I don't know. What are the hallmarks that kind of make bridging of the eras successful? We talked a little bit about that with the U.S. women's national team. Now your club team is kind of in that same boat.
I like that you use the term, obviously, transitional. You talk about bridging eras. I think that is kind of has to be part of the strategy. So, like, this team is going to be led by the defense. Alana Cook, Sofia Huerta, and then Seattle Reign legend Lauren Barnes, Lou Barnes on the back line. The Canadian superstar that we've talked about several times, Quinn, one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. If you look at kind of what are those hallmarks of bridging the gap, like you have to have some of those young players and they have to develop. You have to turn them into your leaders. But then you need your folks like Lou Barnes, Quinn, and then Jess Fishlock, another Seattle Reign absolute legend. You need them to kind of coach those young players along and be willing to hand the reins, no pun intended, hand the reins to them to allow that transition to happen. So I think that's what we got to be looking for. Speaking of Canadian players, we talked about Jordan Huitema during the CONCACAF W Gold Cup.
Yep.
She'll need to take a massive step forward. She has to be a reliable goal-scoring number 9. I think you got to look for her link-up play with forwards Bethany Balser, who has 22 goals in league play over the last 3 seasons. And if I had to name one player I'm really interested in keeping an eye on, 24-year-old forward Ziara King, who has shown some audaciousness and some really clever playing style, at least when I've seen her both live and on television. So I think to bridge that gap, you need the more experienced players to encourage the younger players, not get on them, not like blast them when they're down and they're having a hard time, and just say, hey, you guys are up next. You're carrying this club forward. And I think between Lou Barnes, Jess Fishlock, and Quinn, I think we have the captains to do that, but it doesn't necessarily translate to immediate on-field success.
Yeah, I think something we've seen with this U.S. women's national team just recently is as you're kind of bridging these eras, there is still a role to play for the established veterans, but they kind of like have to keep huge parts of their game, but also carve out new space for the young players, like the next generation players. So going to be pretty interesting to watch. Again, into the channel, the world's preeminent Seattle Reign Orlando Pride podcast. This will not be the last you hear from us on this Seattle Reign team. And also, if you were locked into the Gold Cup, you may recognize that Quinn Huitema pairing as they both played a part in Canada's run to the semis, which after watching the final, USA-Brazil, if I'm Canada, if I'm some of those players on that Canada team, I might feel like I left the Gold Cup on the table this year. I think they could easily make the case they were the second best team. So maybe a chance for some retribution for both Quinn and Huitema. Something definitely to keep an eye on.
Definitely in the Olympics, too. I think Canada is going to be very motivated going into that tournament. Maybe big trouble lurking in little national teams like Spain and France, though. Those teams did not compete in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup.
Iron sharpens iron.
That's right.
Let's shift gears to my Orlando Pride. So last year, 10 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw, putting them 9th in the table just outside the playoffs. Silver lining though, 10 wins, good for 3rd in the NWSL, winning obviously an important category. So happy we did well there. 7 of those wins coming at home, which means our away performance maybe left a lot to be desired. I think this is a good spot in the pod to make somewhat of a proclamation about my NWSL casual status. So if you listen to the show, I'm more of an international guy, more of a UEFA guy. This is going to be my first real deep dive into the NWSL. I also am one of the world's preeminent Babida Banda fanboy podcasters. So I do have that in my back pocket as we talk about the Pride. But what else do I need to know about my hometown squad?
First, before I get into that, with these lights, this scarf is getting too fucking hot, so I'm just going to go ahead and it's warm in this office. Okay, so what should you know about your hometown squad? I think you should be fucking extremely excited. they signed Brazilian midfielder Angelina, my Seattle Reign. Now, Angelina has been battling injuries the last couple years. She's a 24-year-old midfielder, had an ACL injury in 2022, just started to come back last year. You guys like Brazilian players, good taste in players to have, might I add. Obviously, Angelina joins the absolute legend, Marta, and also Adriana. Adriana had 6 goals and 4 assists for you guys last year. And Raffaele, who we talked about in the Gold Cup final episode, suffered that foot injury. I haven't seen the update on that yet. Hopefully it's not too serious. But that is a nice Brazilian core. But buddy, you don't need me. You mentioned it yourself, what you're an expert in. You don't need me to tell you why you should be psyched. Let me just pass the ball back to you, give and go style. You know why you're excited.
100%. Obviously, I'm a big Brazil fan too, so I love the way they play. I'm going to be very excited to see some of that new chemistry. But the signing of Barbara Banda, obviously seismic. She's a nightmare to match up with one-on-one. And if you don't believe me, you can ask the other 5 women she took on in a professional boxing ring, 4 of whom she knocked out. So she's also got a 5-0 boxing record professionally on her resume. Unbelievable. So we are talking about a superior, capital W, world-class athlete. And I wanted to give the audience a little look into my personal life, where I'm also an avid sports card collector. So I purchased this card months before Banda signed with the Orlando Pride. This is a Barbara Banda rookie card. Okay. And there are only 23 of these. This is the pink foil variation. And I have number 23 out of 23. So there are only 22 other Barbara Banda pink foil rookie cards in the entire world. So yeah, if you don't believe that I am as Copper Queen as they get for, a white guy that lives in Orlando, whitish guy, there's your proof. Side note, big fan of this set, by the way. You could probably still grab a box of these at your local Walmart or Target if you're interested. It's a high recommendation from your boy, but I digress. I'm obviously over the moon with the signing. How much can one number 9 really change the fortunes of an entire football team?
A lot. She steps into the league and she's going to be one of the absolute best players in the league. We're talking about a team that barely missed out on the playoffs, had a dreadful start to the season, had a dreadful away record, and still barely missed. They were tied on points with Gotham, the champions. They were tied on 31 points with Gotham, but just 2 goals behind them in goal differential. I mean, I just think there are a lot of examples of if there is one player on the pitch that you drop in and they have an outsized impact in a sport where it's only one player in like the scope of 11, it's a number 9 in football or it's a quarterback in American football, who can immediately change the fortunes and change the momentum, change the shape, change all your opponent's game plans, is when you put an absolute world-class, as you put it, with a capital W player up there. And she's that player. I hate to oversell it, but I actually don't hate to oversell it because I don't think you can. And I love some good hyperbole. I think she immediately vaults you guys to one of the best teams in the league.
Wow. Yeah, obviously you never know what the adjustment period is going to be like, but I mean, her athleticism, her speed, and her finishing ability, I mean, you got to imagine that we'll find a way to make up that 2-goal differential from last year if needed. I think the loss of Messiah Bright's going to hurt. Outside of that, sure. I think things are definitely looking up in Orlando. Obviously, making the playoffs would be tremendous this year. You already know your boy's going to be in the building for as many of these Pride matches as I can make. And any Pride fans out there, hit us up in the YouTube comments. Happy to connect. We'd be excited to kind of talk about this team. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking quite a bit about both the Seattle Reign and the Orlando Pride, our respective teams. Next 2 teams on the docket, I want to zoom into Friday's matchup and take a look at the goings-on at Gotham FC. Strong postseason, culminating in the franchise's first NWSL championship, and an even stronger offseason, with all due respect to the great Esther Gonzalez. Feels like Gotham FC is out here trying to plant their flag as Team America. What do we need to know about this Gotham FC side?
I'll say, I know Premier League fans, they sometimes mock the Community Shield, but when the NWSL announced that the Challenge Cup was going to be changed to the first match of the season and that it was going to have this name, I fucking love playing for a trophy. The first match of the season. I love that we have the ability, me and soccer snobbery, football snobbery, and do we have to have playoffs? Shouldn't it just be everybody play twice and then we crown a champ? At least the playoff system gets us this match where the winner of the playoffs, the NWSL champion, plays the winner of the NWSL Shield. So assuming the same team doesn't win both, and then you have to play the second place team, I like that it has at least created that. And now we kick off the year with a banger of a match.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have to look for from Gotham? They lost their captain and their leader, Ali Krieger. I think it's impossible to argue against the idea that they have not significantly improved over the course of the offseason. I mentioned Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet when I talked about my Seattle Reign. They also signed 2 players you may have heard of, Crystal Dunn and Tierna Davidson, going back to your point of Team USA basically playing out there for the Bats. Mind you, this squad still has the aforementioned Esther Gonzalez, Midge Purse, Lynn Williams, Kelly O'Hara, and oh yeah, maybe one of the best young American players, Jenna Neiswanger. They are the favorites to win the league.
Certainly appears so. I believe it was the great Kanye West, or maybe it was the great Sean Carter. It doesn't matter. One of the two, maybe both of them, said it best when they asked the question, "Who gonna stop me, huh?"
A fair question.
Can anyone stop Gotham FC?
I think so, sure. That is why we play the matches. I mean, how many times have we seen over the course of sports a super team get built and then something weird happens, a couple bounces go the wrong way. I don't think this is likely to happen, but maybe personalities don't mesh. Maybe people are annoyed about their minutes. There are a lot of things that can happen. And then we talk about, too, maybe this is, I feel like, your traditional American sports fans would say that's what's cool about a playoff system. So yeah, maybe Gotham wins the Shield, but maybe they don't win the NWSL championship. I think that's on the board.
I agree with that.
They're obviously going to be awesome, but yeah, sure, somebody could stop them, I think.
I think we'll get a nice preview Friday night. Let's scoot over to the team that they are taking on in the NWSL Challenge Cup, the San Diego Wave. What do we need to know about the Wave?
The 2023 NWSL Shield winners. They lost in the semifinal round of the playoffs at home to the Seattle Reign. But you already know they're looking to finish the job this year. I think that is another interesting thing. I'm going to keep talking about this because I think it's an odd system for a football league to use. But okay, we won the Shield. Do you care about the Shield? I think you should, personally, because you play every other team twice and you finish with the most points. But then you can still leave with that sour taste in your mouth of, yeah, but we didn't win, quote unquote, the title. I think we got to start with, if we're talking about the San Diego Wave, we talked about her plenty, the best player of the CONCACAF W Gold Cup, Jaden Shaw.
How about that?
You quoted some pretty famous musicians there in Jay-Z and Kanye West. Allow me to quote the great Whitney Houston. I believe the children are our future. I'm only kidding. I mean, Jaden Shaw, she's a grown woman, but that's an old man reference, and I thought it was funny to say. But I am looking for this to be a breakout year for Shaw.
I mean, I think the pump has certainly been primed for that. And speaking of bridging eras, kind of symbolic too that also Alex Morgan's on this team. You know, between Jaden Shaw and Naomi Girma, one of their stalwart defenders, they might have had two of the best 5 players in all the CONCACAF W Gold Cup tournament.
Mm-hmm.
San Diego Wave's got a great squad, great roster. I think you absolutely should take pride in finishing at the top of the standings after a full year. With that said, you know, the knockout nature of the very American style playoffs, also a really cool wrinkle. It's one of these things where I always harken back to boxing a little bit. Boxing usually might have 4 or 5 champions in the same division, and they all kind of mean something, but no one title means everything. I think that's a kind of a cool feature of the NWSL League. And I love the Challenge Cup getting reduced down to just one match. You get to raise the cup and the season kicks off, 15, 16 hours later in proper. I think the way they've architected the league structure and how they're rolling out the start of the season, props to them. I think this is going to be a very exciting few days coming up here.
100%. I want to just quickly highlight a couple additions to San Diego. They acquired 21-year-old Swedish international Hannah Lundqvist. She spent some time in midfield for Atletico Madrid in the last 2 seasons, going back to me and you watching European football. The Wave are listing her as a defender, which I think is pretty interesting, kind of looking to fortify the back line with Naomi Girma a little bit. They also added the NWSL Player of the Month for July of 2023. That's Savannah McCaskill. Now, not only did they add McCaskill to the midfield, but they took her from in-state rival Angel City FC, and frankly, marketing rival Angel City FC. I know San Diego, and there's some distance between San Diego and LA, but it just feels like those are your two clubs in the league that are like really fighting for all of the eyeballs in terms of like smart and cool marketing. So I will say, if there's one thing I'm kind of looking for in terms of on the pitch performance with those couple of signings, it would seem like San Diego is trying to shore up a defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how Lundqvist and McCaskill fit into there with Naomi Girma, with an attack that already boasts Alex Morgan and Jaden Shaw.
Let's stay on the West Coast and head north to Portland. I want to talk about the Thorns. Obviously, a lot of big-time recognizable players on that roster. And last year, pretty good finish, second in the standings. In your opinion, what should the Portland fans, speaking of a local marketing rival to your Seattle Reign, bias aside, what should our Portland Thorns fans be looking out for this season?
I'll tell you, there is a little bit of a rivalry. I went to a match maybe the season before last where they did a Reign versus Thorns. I'm going to show myself as a total fraud here. And then the MLS clubs, the Sounders versus the Timbers. I know their names.
Nailed it.
They did like a double header. The Reign played the Thorns first. And obviously me and my wife were there. We're enjoying it. And up in the corner in the visitor section, I couldn't quite make out what the Portland fans were chanting until the end of their chant, which ended with them loudly screaming, "Fuck Seattle." So, a little bit of a rivalry. I got to say credit to them, though. You could hear people laugh the first time they unleashed it. Like, we all got a kick out of it. So, yeah, you could say a little bit of a Pacific Northwest rivalry there. What should we look for as people who are kind of like coming into the league and trying to learn more and enjoy it more? We should stand up and we should applaud Christine Sinclair. She scored 190 international goals for Canada, making her the all-time leading scorer in the history of international football. She's a legend.
Awesome.
She was celebrated as such after her final match for Canada on December 5th, 2023. It was a 1-0 win over Australia. This is her last season for the Thorns, where she's won the NWSL championship 3 times and the NWSL Shield once. So I'm not the boss of anybody. I'm merely making suggestions out here. But when she comes to your town, when she comes to Seattle, I have a feeling that we're going to find a way to give her a standing ovation. I would encourage everybody to, because it's not every day that a legendary player, an all-time leading scorer, retires. So I think we should all find a way to honor her.
Yeah, for sure. It makes all the sense in the world. And I do want to rewind a little bit. No apologies necessary for not knowing these MLS teams. This is a podcast primarily about women's football.
It's true.
Don't you dare ask me to name any MLS teams or mascots, because I promise you I will fail miserably. But again, that's not what we're here to do. Talk to me about some of these attacking players on Portland. You know, obviously they've got, some names that we recognize. Sophia Smith, Olivia Moultrie, who we saw start to get her shine on in the Gold Cup. Maybe one of the players of the final.
I mean, you got to say that's very encouraging. Like, yeah, they lost Crystal Dunn. They lost Costa Rican midfielder Rocky Rodriguez. But you mentioned they have Sophia Smith. They have 25-year-old Sam Coffey. They have Hina Sujita, who we talked about a lot when we were watching the World Cup. Olivia Moultrie, like you said. I think it's also important to consider, if you're even framing the question of like, what's the expectation in Portland? The expectation there is to win. This club wins and is competitive, has been competitive pretty much every season, but like 2 since like 2013. So they're not making excuses down there in Portland. Like, they draft well. Obviously they drafted Sophia Smith number 1 overall a few years back, but they have good players. They have good scouting, and they're just wildly consistent. So you also mentioned they finished second in the table. They're going out there to win games, and they get it done pretty consistently.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see them. I'm also pumped that they get that first slot on Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. They take on the Kansas City Current. Let's shift gears to the Kansas City Current. They've also got some recognizable names and an old friend at manager. Should be a good amount to talk about here with the KC Current. What are you going to be looking for specifically on Saturday afternoon and with regard to the complete season more generally?
On January 20th, the Kansas City Current signed Brazilian forward Bia Zanerato. And I think if we learned anything during the CONCACAF W Gold Cup, Bia is pretty fucking awesome.
She's good.
As Lil Jon once said, Bia, Bia. I think the song, he may have written the song about her. I don't know.
Very prescient.
How many old rap references can we make on a podcast about women's football? We'll find out.
I'll put a little ticker on it, just a little ding every time we hit one.
Nice. And they're going to pair Bia with Brazilian midfielder Debinha. So pretty solid player there as well. Not to mention that they're going to try to make some magic happen with 25-year-old Malawi international Temwa Chawinga. And yes, it's obviously worth mentioning. She is the sister of Paris Saint-Germain star Tabitha Chawinga. Was so incredibly psyched when I saw they signed her. Obviously, we've watched Tabitha play in the UEFA Women's Champions League. So very excited to see what Temwa looks like. And yeah, you mentioned it. It's the elephant in the room. There is this little Netflix documentary floating around out there. It was not great PR for Vlatko Andonovski. He is steering the ship in Kansas City. I think it's safe to say people are going to be monitoring how well that team does and how that team looks and how organized they look throughout the season.
Yeah, hopefully he's abandoned the go out there and be yourself. Or maybe he'll say go out there and be yourself to be able to be a Tristan Ronaldo. Who knows? We'll see.
Nicely done.
I want to talk now about the Washington Spirit. Big move there. We did a little segment a while back on a certain team in Spain you might have heard of, Barcelona. Losing their manager to this Washington Spirit side. Also some big-time recognizable names. They went heavy into the draft. I think they were pretty aggressive with a little bit of a youth movement. Would be interested to know behind the scenes how much Jonathan Giraldez had to do with that. So this Washington Spirit side, they take on your Seattle Reign on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Where are you going to be fixated as you try to take in what's going on the pitch?
I will just be heckling Giraldez from the stands. No, I will not be. I will not be doing that. I don't really yell at the matches. I watch the games, bro. I'm not really. I'll have a couple Frosties. I'll enjoy myself, but I'm not a big yeller. I will say though, I talked about the games I went to last season. The manager for the Courage kept leaving the technical area, kept walking out of his box to yell at the fourth official. And I did stand, we were sitting 2 rows back, and I just stood up and I was like, make him stand in the technical area. Like, he's not allowed to do that. But that was about as loud as I got. Anyway, I digress.
What a funny thing to just get up in arms over. Like, I'm not a heckler, but I've got to draw the lines somewhere, and leaving the technical area is clearly where I'm drawing the line. The lines are actually drawn right there on the field.
It was very easy to know where to stand, and you see every manager do it. They stand right on like the intersection of them. Mm-hmm. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But like he was just giving it to the fourth official, and the fourth official was a young person, and I was just like, yo, this guy is so obviously trying to influence the match. And I know every manager does it. Again, sorry, I'm off on a digression. It is funny that was the thing. But like everybody around me was like, man, isn't he supposed to stand in that box? I was like, yes, he is. I'm like, get this guy out of here. Anyway, so yeah, again, what am I going to be looking for when I likely attend the match on Sunday in Seattle? I mean, come on, man. Washington, they signed Ashley Hatch to a new 3-year contract. They signed free agent Casey Kruger to shore up the back line.
Nice.
They acquired the 3rd and 5th pick of the draft. And with those picks, they scooped up Croy Bethune from the University of Georgia, Hal Hirschfeld from Clemson, and Kate Weisner from Penn State. Mm-hmm. Giraldez is going to have some decisions to make when it comes to those young players. You don't know how much you can play them right away. I understand that. But just go ahead and pencil in Trinity Rodman with the rest of those vets. And he has an awful lot to work with right away. Luckily, we know Giraldez knows how to deal with a lot of talent on a single roster. I can say that with a pretty great certainty.
That he does. And yeah, definitely going to be watching Croy Bethune. We had our guy Chris from Soccer Dossier on right after the NWSL draft. And I think he had Croy Bethune as the most likely to have a major impact this upcoming season. So definitely something for the Washington Spirit fans to be excited about. Where do you think their ceiling is? You think they're kind of like championship type aspirations?
I think I'm going to do this with a lot of teams. But I think they have to have championship aspirations. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have Trinity Rodman, you have Ashley Hatch, now you have Casey Kruger, you pick up Croy Bethune. What else are you doing there? You went out and signed the manager from the most elite club in the world. What else are you going for there? I do remember watching them. I saw them play live last year too, and kind of looking at their lineup up and down and being like, what's this team's record? Like, this team should be way better than it is. So yeah, I think they should be out there looking to host a playoff game.
That's an interesting point, because what do you do when you are underperforming? Probably look at the manager and make a change there, a little bit of a kind of philosophical, strategic, tactical change. And sometimes that's enough to kind of turn the whole thing around. So we'll definitely have an eye on the Spirit team this season, and you're going to get to see them up close against your Seattle Reign. I do want to fast forward here, though. North Carolina Courage. Really good regular season for the Courage. They finished just 4 points behind league leaders San Diego Wave in the standings. Kind of disappointing in the playoffs, though. As a 3 seed, you get bounced in the quarterfinals. Granted, it was to the eventual champions, Gotham FC. Couldn't notch a goal in that one. I have a feeling they're going to have a different kind of energy, different vibes heading into this season. What are you going to be looking for from this Courage side?
So when their manager, Sean Nahas, is not being yelled at by me to stay in his technical area, he does have some good players to manage. And I will say they traded the number 5 pick in the NWSL draft, and they added experienced midfielder and forward Ashley Sanchez from the Washington Spirit. That was one of those trades that when you saw it, you're like, oh shit, what's Washington doing here? But turns out they had some pretty good plans. Sanchez had 5 goals and an assist for the Spirit last season, but the Courage is surely looking for her to increase that production, mainly because, and in just the bummer of all bummer news, 2023 NWSL MVP, the dynamic Brazilian forward, Carolyn, tore her ACL near the end of last season, making it pretty unlikely that she'll return this year. They'll need Sanchez to pick up some of that slack because Carolyn scored 10 goals and had 3 assists last season. And when you watch her play in person, especially when you watch her play in person against your team, is a terrifying winger to play against. It's just so quick, so skilled. So obviously a giant hole there. I do think it's worth noting that the Courage improved its back line. It acquired German defender Feli Rausch. I know we talk about some of those advanced metrics on FB Football Reference. I encourage everybody to look at Feli Rausch's advanced metrics, those scouting report stats on FB Ref. They pop off the screen. She played for perennial Frauen Bundesliga and Champions League contender Wolfsburg. She's an experienced national team player who does a little bit of everything from defense and going into the attack. In an off season of exciting signings, she could be a real under-the-radar gem.
I'm looking at some of those stats at the moment. Very impressive, courtesy of our friends at FB Ref. Still very much in her prime, 27 years old. And that squad in Wolfsburg, they've obviously had tremendous success. Excellent signing for the Courage. Should we be thinking about this team as a contender? It does kind of feel like, obviously with the loss of Caroline, devastating injury, that maybe nudges them down. I like to think about with like 14 teams, we're going to have a top 4 or 5, and then maybe like a middle 4 or 5, and then maybe a bottom 4 or 5. Yeah. It does kind of feel like that injury, despite the signings and the personnel moves, maybe bumps this Courage team down into that middle tier.
I think he kind of has to, man. 10 goals and 3 assists and just the gravity that Carolyn provided. I mean, hard to come back from that. So I think that, they're going to have to play a defensive style. Again, that's why I always say that's why they play the matches. But if I had to place one sports take chip on that, I would assume that you see them fall down the table a little bit.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. They take on the Houston Dash. This one's going down Saturday, 7 p.m. What should we be on the lookout for with regard to this Houston Dash team?
Please score goals, Houston. I'm asking you politely. They scored 16 goals in league play last season.
Ouch.
For anybody who doesn't remember how many league games there were 22 matches. So 16 goals in 22 matches is not good. It's not what you want.
Tough to win that way.
Hard to win. Hard to win when you score fewer than 1 goal per match. And from what I can tell in the stats, 13 of those goals were from open play. So not exactly a dynamic offense. They wanted to make some changes. Step number 1, they hired Fran Alonso, a native of Madrid, as their new manager. Alonso spent the last few years managing Celtic FC in the Scottish Women's Premier League. Under his leadership, the club won 3 of the 4 cup competitions it played in, and the club had a record of 79 wins, 9 draws, and 11 losses during his tenure.
Let's go.
I think that's pretty good. Turns out Celtic, pretty much as good in the women's league as it is in the men's league. Who would have thought? Mm-hmm. The club is looking for Mexican forward Maria Sanchez, who we talked about in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup. You want her to have more looks on goal this season to improve upon her 4-goal, 4-assist campaign last year. And they also recently acquired Cece Kaiser. She should help. She put up 6 goals and 2 assists for the Kansas City Current last season. So somebody looked around and said, hey, we got to score some goals around here. No shot at their defense, though. I mean, I think they only conceded 18 last season in league play, if I recall correctly. But still, 16 goals, as you mentioned. Hard to win that way.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I love the Kaiser pickup. I like her game. I think they're going to need some of that dynamism from her.
Oh, yeah.
She notched 13 goals in 35 appearances for the KC Current. So obviously that goal problem that you mentioned, hopefully she's got something to say about that. And this feels like probably another team at best, maybe in that middle section. We'll see. There's that new manager bounce that I think we can expect.
Yeah.
But talent-wise, things I think are a little thin with this Houston side. But obviously that's why they play the games. Another good part about the knockout bracket, you make that top 6. And the way the standings shook out last season, a lot of clumping in the middle there. So a couple wins here and there, you steal one here, you steal one there, and you might be able to sneak in. And then it's basically knockout football at that point. And I think the season is kind of so long. The final doesn't take place till November.
Right.
That's a long ways away. So when you have a young team, a lot of time for them to kind of like gel, mature, a new manager, time to kind of figure out what should we be doing? How can we maximize this roster that we have? So who knows? I think that's kind of a little bit of a silver lining. If you're a Houston Dash fan, we'll be locked into them as well this weekend when they take on the Courage. Again, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Let's scoot ahead to a sort of debutante in the NWSL. The Utah Royals. Utah back in the mix. New year, new look, new ownership. We'll see if we can get it right the second time around. They had the number 1 overall pick this year's draft. They took 20-year-old Ali Sentnor out of UNC. Where should our expectations be around this expansion team?
I think it's going to be interesting. Sentnor scored 11 goals and had 7 assists in 23 matches for the Tar Heels last season. She's a number 1 overall pick for a reason. And I'll say, like, thinking of experienced players that they tried to add, we became fans of a lot of different teams during the last World Cup. And I would be very remiss if I did not mention Utah signing NWSL veteran Ifeoma Anamanu from the Nigeria Super Falcons, from our favorite teams watching in the World Cup. Anumanu had 14 caps for champion Gotham last season, and she has 100 caps in her NWSL career. So I love that as a move to just kind of like, okay, let's get a stabilizing veteran presence in here. Somebody who plays on the international level, somebody who's played in this league for a long time. I think it's a really savvy move by the club. Utah also made, I think, a pretty savvy move, even if you want to call it from a marketing standpoint. They acquired Michaela Clough from your Orlando Pride. Clough played at Brigham Young University and is unsurprisingly a native of Utah.
I like the move. I mean, expansion team, you're building something from scratch, a lot like what we're doing here at the ITC. There's a lot of groundwork to be done. And I like the move. I think, expectations should be reasonable.
Yeah.
The top teams in this league are, again, they're there for a reason as well. So I think if you're Utah, you're building for the long term, you want to sort of set up a fan base, build an identity, good way to be able to connect with the local community as well. So I like the pickup. Kind of hurts my pride, my Orlando pride, not my personal pride. But I'm excited to see what this team looks like when they roll the ball out there on Sunday.
I think you should be. I mean, we talked about it a few months back with Chris from Soccer Dossier. I'm just going to go through a quick list of the last several number 1 overall picks in the NWSL draft. Emily Sonnet, Rose Lavelle, Andy Sullivan, Tierna Davidson, Sophia Smith, Emily Fox, Naomi Girma, Alyssa Thompson, Ali Sentnor. So, not a miss in that group.
No, not a single one. And if you didn't hear our NWSL draft coverage, I strongly encourage you to go back to check that video out. Chris was great. Talked us through pretty much the entire first round. Gave us a couple sleepers. We had to twist his arm a little bit. Shout out to Chris. And we'll be checking out his dossier coming up here as we approach next year's draft as well. But yeah, definitely go back and check that one out.
Nobody accosts Chris for some of his projections. I mean, look, we all have projections. We all have takes. Chris was very like, hey, man, don't hold me to these, which is totally fair. But the dude does the work, does the studying, understands the draft. That's why, we found him and we're like, holy shit, this person actually knows about the NWSL draft. And so shout out to you, Chris. We appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us.
Yep, that's our guy. Let's go ahead. These Utah Royals, in their inaugural NWSL matchup, they are going to take on the Chicago Red Stars, led by goalkeeper Alyssa Nair, who still has smoke coming off her from her performance in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. They also traded their pick in a move to acquire center back Sam Staub. Big fan of her as well. 2023 NWSL Defender of the Year. Rough season last year from the gang from Chicago. Are they in a position to kind of turn things around, or is there just too much work to do with this squad? What are your expectations for where they might be headed?
It's going to be tough. I mean, let's just keep it $1.50 here. Now I'm totally with you. Acquiring Sam Staub from the Washington Spirit was a good move, but it was also a necessary move because they needed to replace Tierna Davidson, who we previously had mentioned went to the Bats out in Gotham. So yeah, you're going to need Staub to step up there. Chicago appointed Lauren Donaldson as its manager on December 20th. Lauren's latest work was managing the Reggae Girls of Jamaica.
Let's go.
They made it to the knockout stage of the 2023 World Cup. And mind you, they made it to the knockout stage of the World Cup, and they were in a group that had Brazil and Germany in it. So pretty good work from Lauren. Now, obviously, Bunny's drawing a lot of attention there. So it's not like Lauren had a total deficit of talent, and we really liked their back line. But one thing we always talked about Jamaica's back line was their organization and them always being able to keep their shape. I'm curious to see if that is part of Donaldson's philosophy, part of his coaching. Now you put a center half like Sam Staub in there, and maybe they're like, hey, let's not give up 50 goals this season like the Red Stars did last year.
I love the pickup of Donaldson because that was the one thing. Obviously, we were on Bunny watch.
Always.
Second Jamaica was in action. But yeah, defensively, the back line, Rebecca Spencer in goal, they were locked down. They had some big dogs in that group, and they advanced into the knockout stage. That's the story of the World Cup for that team. Just defensively, they were a nightmare. Yep. And, if you're Chicago, where do you go looking for a new manager? That's probably a great place to start the process. And props to them. They locked down Donaldson and look to turn their fortunes around.
There are rumblings on WOSO Twitter after the hiring of Donaldson took place that they are, in fact, on Bunny watch. And let me just tell you.
Ooh, buddy.
Would I like to see Bunny Shaw in our home league? Yes, I would. But also, don't take her from my Sky Blues.
Don't do my guy like that.
Yeah, come on. What are we doing here? My hometown club loses Megan Rapinoe, Emily Sonnet, and Rose Lavelle in one offseason. Don't sign away Bunny from my European club. What are we doing here?
It's tough because in a year where Babada Banda signs with my Orlando Pride, I would hate to see a talent probably of the same ilk leave one of your squads. But on the flip side, that would be tremendous for parity for the NWSL.
Be great.
Skyrocket Chicago right up into that mix. I think if we're saying that Banda basically turns Orlando Pride into maybe borderline top tier team, I can't imagine that Bunny Shaw wouldn't do the same for Chicago. I mean, she's an otherworldly talent and, obviously has a relationship with Donaldson. Can't really speak to the quality of that relationship, but Bunny was great in the World Cup, and obviously the team success is kind of all that matters there. I definitely don't wish that on you, as a city fan. But would be cool to see Bunny here stateside, just wrecking the NWSL. I mean, big time influx. You called for it, man. Like after the media rights deal, you're like, let's break out the checkbooks, loosen the purse strings, and let's bring over some players. And props to some of these ownership groups. They've made it happen. And it does feel like there's more to come. So definitely exciting times for the league as a whole. But yeah, that would definitely hurt your squad.
Yeah. I mean, if she's going to come over to the NWSL, for the love of God, at least come to the Rain. There's a Jamaican spot right down the block in my neighborhood, Bunny. Let's go. I like it. We can figure this out. So, Rain, if you got to open up the checks, because I will say, in all seriousness, when I say, don't take her from my Sky Blues, if the money's right, let them know you're not interested in playing anymore. Sell my contract if this money is right. So I'm always, always, always unequivocally in favor of the player getting the most money they could possibly get.
I also had a prediction about maybe seeing the first $1 million transfer fee at some point this calendar year. If we've got Kunanaji at her number, Banda at her number, you got to imagine Bunny Shaw maybe approaches that $1 million number, especially to make the move all the way across the pond. So definitely something to watch. A couple more teams left on the docket here. Let's go to to Angel City. They take on in-state rival, another expansion team, Bay FC. But Angel City, what do we need to know about this team?
They finished 5th in the table last season. They lost in the first round of the playoffs to my Seattle Reign. As I mentioned, your boy was there. Cool fans. We were sitting like sort of by there. Like they had like a bunch of supporters come up from LA for the match. Really nice people. Nothing sketchy between any of us. Like we were like telling them like, hey man, you guys got nothing to be ashamed of at the end of the loss. They were all super cool about it. And while that was a bummer to watch their team lose in the playoffs, we got to get another gigantic bummer out of the way. The club announced on February 15th, 23-year-old Japanese winger Jun Endo tore her ACL during training camp. Endo was a massively impressive player during the World Cup for Japan. She remains a promising young talent. I was tweeting about her. She has an attitude and an audaciousness about her play that it symbolizes the best part of football, in my opinion. So we wish her a full and speedy recovery. I look forward to watching her play again. Angel City added Costa Rican midfielder Rocky Rodriguez, who comes over from the Portland Thorns.
Let's go.
Expect Rocky to play a lot, because that's what she does. And if you have her on your squad, you put her on the pitch. But we have to mention, and you talked about it a little bit during your Orlando Pride discussion there, Angel City acquired Messiah Bright from Orlando for a $130,000 intra-league transfer fee. Orlando drafted Messiah Bright number 21 overall in the 2023 draft. That's good value, Bubba. She was a finalist for Rookie of the Year and led all rookies with 7 goals. I thought she was wildly impressive for your squad last season. I believe at one point in our previous podcast where we would maybe gamble on such things, and Messiah scoring a goal won us some money during that previous podcast. I had compared some parts of her play to Harry Kane, and I believe in it. I think she has a chance to be a real star in this league.
I mean, she definitely shined last year, jumped off the screen. I felt definitely a sink in my stomach when I saw that she was going out to Angel City. Kind of softened when I saw how excited Messiah Bright was to be heading out to LA. Who knows? Maybe she's got some acting aspirations that she wants to kind of crank up on the side. But unbelievable talent. To get her at 21 in the draft and then lose her, kind of rough, but she's so good that it's just like, I don't know. I'm just excited to have that kind of talent in the league. Still so young, still up and coming. So yeah, we definitely wish her well. And I like this Angel City squad. A lot of good players on it up and down the roster. Rocky Rodriguez, who you mentioned, Messiah Bright, Ali Riley, Amandine Henry, and Alyssa Thompson. You know, not yet 20 years old, got that U.S. Women's National Team experience. I mean, there's the naysayers out there that question maybe like her size. But I mean, she plays real big, and I think we're just going to kind of put that off to the side. I actually predict a big season from Thompson. I'm really excited to see her play.
I mean, we talked about those number 1 overall picks. I mean, she clearly has the pedigree. I thought it was interesting to see her, to like see her family, her support system that she had in that Netflix documentary. I mean, she was at the World Cup. She saw firsthand what it's like to lose in a major tournament. And I wonder, like, you hear about that in other sports of like learning from those failures. And it wasn't even like her personal failures. Like there was nothing she did in the World Cup that was going to change anything as a young player like that. But for her to kind of witness it, she strikes me as a very bright young woman too. And so I would imagine somebody there who's kind of observing all that, taking all that in. It's interesting to see what kind of lessons she'll take from it. I mean, she was taken number 1 overall for a reason.
Absolutely. One take chip from me that she quiets all the haters out there.
I like it.
All right, let's scoot ahead to the team that Angel City's taking on this weekend. And that is the other expansion team from one of my old stomping grounds, San Francisco, Bay FC. Big personnel moves from them as well. I'm going to clear out here a little bit. Where do we even get started with kind of what they did? Massive kind of first, you know, like sometimes you kind of want to tread lightly. It's a new team. And they were like, fuck that. We're just going to like flip some tables, make some noise and get rowdy. Where do you want to get started with this Bay FC team?
I mean, what's not to like about them other than the fact that they are a San Francisco team? And that just might be NBA bias coming from me there. I think there's a lot to like about them, actually. They drafted Savannah King, number 2 overall out of the University of North Carolina. They signed a 20-year-old forward, the Ghanaian Princess Marfo. They signed 32-year-old Scottish center half Jen Beatty from Arsenal FC. You might be familiar with that club. Those all look like pretty great moves that kind of cover the spectrum of like, okay, let's get some vets in here. Let's get our young players in here. But I mean, we just got to get to the headliners here. The first co-headliner, Nigerian superstar Asisat Oshoala. 21 goals for a little club called Barcelona last season. She is an absolute menace out there. Just speed, power, precision, skill. And I was like, okay, wow, what a splash from Bay FC. A great signing. You gotta love that. You take Oshoala off of Barcelona, who seems like a character player. You read her quotes in these news articles, all that stuff, but probably felt like I'm just not getting enough playing time at Barcelona because she's a superlative type player. And I was like, great move, Bay FC. Excited to watch you. Then they turn around and sign Zambian superstar Rachel Kundananji, who made a little bit of a name for herself in a little league called Liga F. For Madrid FC, she scored 25 goals in Liga F last season. Now, I do think everybody, though, is waiting with bated breath here. Kundananji was stretchered off. She was seen in tears as she was being stretchered off in their recent Olympic qualifying match. Like searching the corners of women's footballing internet, I found a website called Zamfoot, which describes itself as, quote, the home of Zambian football. End quote. They had a lot of stuff on there. Again, maybe I'm an old man. Maybe I'm being fooled by the internet, but it looked like the people doing the reporting over there at Zamfoot looked like they really cared about the sport. It looked like they were trying to really make sure that they were reporting news. That reporting stated that she could miss more than 6 weeks with that injury. I hope she's well within that timeline. So we'll have to see on that. But to your point, Bay FC did not waste any time with Oshoala and Kundananji. And you had talked about, too, the encouraging signs it is to see teams sign players to big deals to make sure that these women are paid at a rate that they should be. So even waiting for what happens with Kundananji, I am extremely excited to see what Bay FC is doing because they're entering the league and making a splash right away.
Yeah, totally agree. You already mentioned Savvy King, who they picked up in the draft. Stanford's Maya Doms as well. Our guy Chris from Soccer Dossier also super high on her, if I recall correctly. So it's not just the vets that they brought in. Nice mix of experienced players and young players. Even with this being an expansion team, I think they do have the roster to, if they can get it together, like really make an impact, kind of maybe even sneak into the bottom of that top tier, but definitely a team that should absolutely have playoff aspirations.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we talked about it with Banda. When you sign Oshoala, you have one of the best players in the league off rip. Like, there's no question about it. So they should be able to score. It'll be interesting to see how the defense holds up, but they feel like a must-watch to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a new squad in there and just pretty loaded squad just dropped into the league. That's got to be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
This weekend's going to be pretty action-packed for sure. One more team to hit in our NWSL preview, and that is Racing Louisville. They finished 9th last season. A couple recognizable names on this roster. Not quite the same level of heavy hitters as some prior teams that we've talked about. 9th place finish out of the playoffs last season. Not really sure they have the firepower to kind of like reach that top tier. But let me know what kind of offseason this Racing Louisville side had.
Interesting offseason for our pals in Louisville, as I believe the correct pronunciation is, as a guy from originally born and raised in Ohio. Now, I was Northeast Ohio, but all my pals from Southern Ohio think it's Louisville. I think it's a very lazy American inflection there. I digress, of course I do. I thought it was an interesting offseason. They signed Bev Yanez, former NWSL MVP finalist during her playing days. Yanez has taken over the reins as Louisville's manager. So that's an interesting change right off the top. She's charged with improving the club, but she has some talent to work with. We have Brazilian Ari Borges, Savannah DeMello, and Jalen Howell. All of them are returning. But then Racing went out and grabbed 25-year-old South African striker Linda Motaulo, who some folks might remember as an important player for South Africa, or as Dino often told us during our coverage of the World Cup, Banyana Banyana.
Banyana Banyana.
As I believe. A wonderfully entertaining team to watch during the World Cup. Racing also added Taylor Flint. Now, Taylor Flint used to go by Taylor Korniak. I'm guessing Flint is now her married name. They're adding Flint to their midfield. Flint is one of the more dangerous aerial threats in the NWSL, and one of the players who helped bring about the phrase to this fine podcast and our previous gambling podcast, tall girl bias, which was created by my lovely 5'11" wife, who loves a tall footballer who can go out there and head goals in. Kordiak is quite tall and is an absolute menace out there on corner kicks, on any set piece. So I think it's going to be real interesting to see what Louisville does with that influx of talent.
Taylor measuring in at 6'1".
Hot damn. Half inch shorter than me.
Puts her right up there at the top end of the tall girl bias,
I would say.
And yeah, like I said, they take on my Orlando Pride, so I will have some thoughts on them when we reconvene to talk about what we saw in the first weekend of NWSL action. Let's close things out with some predictions. I say we pick a Shield winner who's going to be at the top of the standings when the regular season's all said and done. And then I also want to make predictions around who we think makes the final. And then we'll also pick our 2024 NWSL champions. So I'll go first with my Shield pick. Give me Gotham FC. I think they're loaded. I think they're deep. I think it's going to take the rest of the league a while to kind of figure out what exactly it is that they're doing and how a team might be able to start thinking about how to defend them. So that's my pick. I think they end the season at the top of the standings.
Buddy, I warned you, I think it was before the recording started, I warned you this might be a two brewski podcast. I think it has to be in honor of the picks.
Let's go.
Okay, for show purposes, I should probably pick somebody else as the Shield winner. I can't. I think you're right. I mean, Gotham, too much talent over the course of the season. You think about the traditional European footballing model of you play every squad twice, and the team with the most wins and draws and the most points in general pretty much takes home the crown. It's tough to see any team winning more matches than the Bats. So I'm going to agree with you. We're not doing pardon the interruption. I think I would be Tony Kornheiser in this mix. But yeah, I'm not arguing with that. I think the Bats are going to take it.
I don't think I could ever forgive you for making me Mike Wilbon of this podcast.
I didn't want to be Wilbon. I don't Chicago. Chicago's going to win.
Chicago. Chicago. Derek. Yeah. Anyhow, so let's make a pick with regard to the 2024 NWSL Championship. I'm going to go a little off the board here. Give me Jonathan Hidalgo's Washington Spirit.
Okay.
2024 NWSL champions as they squeak by fellow finalist, my Orlando Pride.
Wow, yes.
That's my final that I'm predicting.
Okay, that's phenomenal. All right.
Yeah, I like Hidalgo's. I like Trinity Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
I like what they've done over there with regard to kind of like a little bit of a youth movement. I just think that knockout football is tricky, and November's a long time away. That's a long time for Hidalgo's to kind of install exactly what he wants to do. And I just like the roster. And I think Orlando, I mean, is it a homer pick? Definitely not. No, it might be. Orlando strikes me as the kind of team, even if Banda goes absolutely bananas in the league, I just kind of imagine they're the type of squad that I think maybe kind of runs out of gas, but I can see like a real dream kind of run for them, make it to the playoffs, maybe win one, maybe win two. Now all of a sudden they're in the final. That would be incredible. But I don't think they quite have the firepower to get all the way to the apex. So yeah, that's my finals pick. Give me Washington over my Orlando Pride.
That's phenomenal, man. I fucking love that. Barbara Banda getting to the final, taking the team. I'll tell you, you're a brave man for thinking that Banda gets to the final and doesn't finish the job. But, you know, you got Trinity on the other side. So I fucking love this pick. All right. So, we're doing this. Dino surprised me with this. So, again, I'm sorry if I am forsaking the name of content, but I am telling you, again, I don't know if we're doing this podcast too often. I'm taking the Spirit also not to win. I'm taking the Spirit to appear in the final.
I like it.
And I know it doesn't have to be East versus West, but I think we end up with that because I'm with you on all the Washington stuff. You have Rodman, you have Heraldez as the manager, you have Andy Sullivan in the midfield, you have Ashley Hatch up top. I love it. I think they can make it to the final. My NWSL champion, And you know what? I don't feel wonderful saying this. As we alluded to, I'm a Seattle man. I think they're going to lose to the Portland Thorns. Because like I said,
Whoa.
the Portland Thorns win fucking football matches. It's what they do, man. They are one of the elite clubs in the league.
Let's go.
I talked about Sam Coffey. We talked about Olivia Moultrie. We talked about, obviously, Hina Sujita and Sophia Smith. I didn't even mention, because I'm a dope, they signed Jessie Fleming, the Canadian international over from Chelsea, to add to that midfield.
Wow.
So let's get it. I think the Thorns end up winning the NWSL championship, and Christine Sinclair, like the legend she is,
Oh my God.
walks off the pitch, raising one more trophy. Maybe she plays the last 10 minutes of the match, and the legend gets the curtain call that she deserves.
God damn it. You are Kornheiser. I
believe I had that.
I'm so jealous of that pick. If I didn't take my Orlando Pride, I actually would be a little bit more jealous. But tremendous pick. Jessie Fleming, obviously Canada's best player by a good margin.
Yeah.
Against the U.S. and a tremendous player throughout the tournament that we just watched. So awesome pick. I think we're going to have a lot of this right. That's my final prediction. With that out of the way, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we covered the whole league, my good man.
Top to bottom. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Remember, subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X. Everyone listening right now, thank you. You absolutely make the show better, which we appreciate tremendously. And obviously, we try to cover as much of the league as we could in a short amount of time. I'm sure we missed a ton. So please chime in. We want to hear about your squad. We want to hear about what we got right. We want to hear about more so about what we missed. Like Grant always says, this is a learning podcast, and we're here to learn and enjoy the games. And yeah, we're just thankful every day that we kind of get to do this and hang out with all of you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys checking us out. Dino is very humble about his NWSL ascent, like he's watching the league for the first time. I don't mean to purport myself like I'm some kind of expert. I've been watching the league closely, well, relatively closely. I'm sure probably not as closely as some of the folks checking out these videos. So I've been paying attention for 2.5, 3 years. So I don't mean to act like I'm some kind of expert for all the history. Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what we missed. Help us get up to speed on some of these other clubs. Please tell me, am I pronouncing Louisville wrong? Is this a stereotype I developed as a native Ohioan? Help us along this journey as we continue to cover this league, which just has to be considered one of the absolute best women's football leagues in the world. We're excited to watch it with you guys.
Absolutely. And yeah, big thank you to my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel, for being, God damn it, the Tony Kornheiser to my Michael Wilbon. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it. Good night, Canada.